Hello, my name is Chef Mark Seibert from Lackawanna College's Culinary Arts program. Today I'm going to show you the proper technique for seasoning and searing a airline chicken breast and getting the proper color, and done this to serve with a pan sauce that we will also create once we've seared off our chicken. Okay, so here we have our airline chicken breast. This is a chicken that we're going to sear and get a good presentation and a nice golden color on this skin, as if we would serve it, want to serve it in a restaurant or a catering event, so that it has, number one, nice eye appeal, number two, lots of flavor created by that browning, or what's called a Maillard effect, getting that. It's not caramelization because proteins do not have sugars in them. You caramelize vegetables, and when we're doing proteins, that's the Maillard effect and getting the browning effect. So what we want to do, I like to use kosher salt for a lot of my purposes and seasoning. So with our fingers, we'll get a nice pinch and we'll season from above the chicken to disperse. If I'm going to show you something real quick, you don't want to season down low, because what happens if you season down low, then you have a concentrated section of salt. So this is not just for show. Chefs do this for a reason, so that when we are seasoning, we're getting that proper disbursement, and it's not going to be located in one area of the piece of protein that you're seasoning. Again, with the pepper, this is black pepper that we have. We'll do the same thing, put it up high and season so it's dispersed. And then we'll do the same on the back side, or the fleshy side, our non-presentation side. It's important to season both sides of the chicken, so you're not leaving all the seasoning on top of the skin, and you're going to get good flavor through the whole piece of meat. So that's our seasoning. We can let that sit for a while if we have time, just to let that maybe have that salt dissolve a little bit, get into the meat. This is a supreme. You're going to notice the one thing that's different about this piece of chicken and this chicken. This piece of chicken hasn't been pounded out. Okay, we gently tapped this out, and what we did that for was basically to achieve proper cooking, even cooking, so we don't have a thick and thin spot that you would see on this. So if you take a look at this piece of chicken, we have nice flat, even chicken across. It's going to give us a good sear. It's a nice flat surface. It doesn't have that round top on it. And that's what we want to see for searing our chicken. So once we've seasoned the chicken, that's when we want to move to the stove and turn our pan on and get the pan nice and hot. For a proper searing technique, you cannot sear in a cold pan. What happens with when we heat up our pan, you want to be able to hear the sizzle. If you do not hear the sizzle, your pan is not hot enough. You don't necessarily need to get your oil to a smoke point, which I'll discuss right now. So with our pan, we know that it's getting a little hot. Don't try this at home. I usually like to touch the pan a little bit to see where we're at. Give a fine, thin coating, and what you'll see immediately with the oil going into the pan is the change in viscosity of the oil. As it heats up, it starts to run faster. Okay? Now, a smoke point of this oil, you would actually see smoke rising off of that. It's not necessarily for searing a chicken. Some vegetables or some proteins, you may need to get it to a smoke point, but very rarely is that the case. And if you are in doubt when you are learning to cook, you can actually touch pieces of the chicken to the pan to see if you're going to have a good sear. So we're going to put the skin side down because that's our presentation side, and we're going to gently put it in away from you, never towards you, so that this hot fat does not splash up into your face and cause a nasty burn. So once we have our pan hot, we need to control our temperature. We don't necessarily want to leave it on high and have that chicken just cook so quickly that you're going to burn the skin, obviously, when we're looking for that browning effect or that Maillard effect. So we're going to take our tongs, and patience is the biggest thing that students have when they're learning this technique. They want to immediately go in there and start shaking the pan. Shaking the pan is not a technique that's used for all things. It's good for sauteing, but then when we're talking about pan searing and then eventually roasting, what happens is the chicken will release itself, and that is natural non-stick pan. Hot pan, cold food, the food won't stick. Okay, so this is not brown enough. You see, we did start to get some of that Maillard effect. Okay, so we want to flip that back over and get a better golden color on that. Okay, it did release, but we want to have that presentation a little more brown. And as you can see, with this heat turned down, there's enough residual heat, not only in the spider, but in the pan, so we don't have to have it cranked up and burn our product. We're looking for nice, attractive, good eye appeal that customers, guests, wherever would really want to have. That looks really like a really nice piece of chicken. Okay. We want to crisp that skin up a little bit. That's one of the nice appeals about having the sear, is crisping that skin. It's one of the finer points of cooking a chicken, and that crispy skin is what people crave most of the time. So again, now we have a sear that's a little more like it. We have that nice golden color, and we'll sear this side of the chicken a little bit. So as you can see, this is now starting to sear and get very golden brown. Again, it needs a little bit more time. Now there's two schools of thought here. We could take this saute pan to finish and put this right into the oven, or we can remove this chicken from our pan, like we are going to do, and place it onto a sizzler. Remove our pan from the heat at this time, and go directly into the oven for continual browning and to finish the cooking process in the oven. Well, I want to show you what's in the pan here. This is from what's happened in the searing process. This is what's called a fond. Okay, we have a little bit of the fat from the oil from what's in there, and there's some seasoning in there. But the key here is this is all good stuff. This is stuff that we want to use to create our pan sauce and add more depth of flavor to just a plain old chicken breast. We're going to turn the flame back on, and in order to get this fond off of here and to add more flavor to, we need to add some sort of moisture to the pan. Okay, so we have some diced onion here. And again, this is a real basic method for creating a pan sauce. Once we get our pan back up to temperature, because our chicken is in the oven and has been sitting off to the side for a little bit, but again, you want the pan to be hot first, so we can start to create a little bit of a sear. And now, instead of the Maillard effect, we are going to be looking for a little caramelization with these onions. So we're going to add our onions. And again, we hear the sound. Okay, if you can hear the sound, that is a good thing. Okay. Now, onions have natural moisture in them, and the best way to pull some of that moisture out is to season with salt. The salt will pull out a little bit of that moisture. Okay? And we want to, again, control our temperature. Biggest thing that students have is the problem of actually leaving everything on high and not letting the product cook as it should. So we're looking for a little bit of translucency here in the onions, and the moisture that's coming out, you're going to start to see some of this fond getting pulled up into the onions. And again, this is just another way to layer the flavors in the sauce. And this is basically what we're going to be doing, is adding three components: our onion, white wine, chicken stock. I should say 4 components, because then we're going to finish this with a little bit of butter. Okay? So those are our main components and our main flavors that are going to be in this pan sauce. Okay? Now that we're getting a little bit of color on the onions, and the onions are starting to get a little bit translucent, what I'm going to do, because there's a couple different methods that you do in searing or sauteing. Some people actually add flour onto the product. That'll help it the product not stick. But for what we did, we want to have a sauce that is still going to bind to our chicken. So what we're going to do, we're going to dust this pan with a little bit of flour, just the littlest bit. Okay, and we're basically going to create a pan roux. Okay, and add a little bit of thickening agent to our sauce to give it that Again, this is something you don't want to burn the flour. You want to work fairly quickly when we do this. And this is the key here. We have a little white wine. We want to remove the pan from the flame. Never use anything with alcohol in it directly over the flame. And we'll add our wine to it, and you'll see that it's automatically starting to turn brown. And we're going to turn the heat up a little bit. We're going to cook off that alcohol, and we're going to scrape that fond off of the pan. That's all that flavor. So now we have that chicken flavor. You see how that flour that was in there bound up that sauce a little bit. We're going to take our chicken stock that we have. We're going to add that to our pan. And we're going to now reduce this. Okay? Gently. We want to gently reduce. We don't need to have the heat up so high that it's going to boil out so fast. We want to concentrate those flavors. Reduce this sauce. Get it nice and rich the way we saw when we just had the wine in it. And while we're doing that, we're going to check our chicken. It's in the oven. And we're going to let that rest. Resting is letting the juices of the chicken relax. So when we cut into this, the chicken's not going to run out of the piece of protein. So we're going to, for the sake of time, we're going to put this chicken onto the plate. So once we put our chicken onto the plate, we have our sauce that's reducing nicely with our onions in it for flavor. And then to add another layer of richness to this, in small quantity, we're going to add a little bit of butter. That's what will cause the final product to become a little bit more rich. So we're going to take that and lightly swirl it in. And you see that immediately this pan sauce is tightening up. It still has a nice sheen to it. Again, this is very basic. We can either pour this around our chicken so as not to take away from that crispy skin. Our plate. And this is an airline chicken breast with a basic onion and wine pan sauce.